So it's almost 2 a.m. where I am right now. And I just got my copy of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child today. I actually finished it around 9. And I was trying to go to bed. And then at about 1 o'clock, I woke up and I'm like, wait a second, what the fuck did I just read? Uh, so this is my way of saying that it's not good at all. Uh, I actually was kind of like against this idea that there was going to be like a Harry Potter play that was presumably part of canon. I was a little uncomfortable with that because it was something that not everyone would get to see, and it was in a different format. And apparently, J.K. Rowling didn't even write it. I thought she had written the script, uh, but it's just her story ideas apparently, and a actual playwright wrote the script. Uh, So maybe things would be executed a little better in the play, but the fact remains that this is what most people are going to get to read. So I'm going to just take it at face value, what people paid for or what people got. Uh, so the first thing that struck me when I was reading this is that they were showing a scene that was in the epilogue. It was in the books, and but they added some line that wasn't there where Ron is going on about like a joke product and he's like making jokes, and that was weird because that's not how Ron acts, and it is objectively not something he did in the books. But I continue reading, and Albus Severus, Al, meets Scorpius in the train, and it is revealed that there is a rumor that his mom went back in time and like fucked Voldemort or something, and that Voldemort is Scorpius' father. And this is the point where I realized what I was in for. I was sitting on the couch, and my mom looked over at me, and she's like, "How is it?" And I said, "Oh, it's shit." So I never had that much of a problem with the time turner as a concept because they kind of established it as something that, it's very limited in its use. It can only go back like a couple hours. It makes apparently a stable time loop, at least the time we see it. So it wasn't that bad. And I know it bothered a lot of people, and then J.K. Rowling destroyed it in the fifth book so that she could just eliminate that that sort of idea that they could go back and do whatever they wanted. But here's the thing. um you never it's like portrayed as kind of like a very obscure, very limited type of magic that almost nobody has access to, like they're all the Department of Mysteries. You never, in the course of the books, when they're trying to figure out all these mysteries, you never hear anyone said, "Oh, maybe they used a time turner," because that's not like a thing that people think, because no one has access to these devices really. And even if they did, it could only really go back a couple of hours without, fucking up immensely. So it's not like they have this unlimited access to time travel. So the idea that any significant portion of the wizarding world would think that Scorpius's mom went back in time to conceive a child with Voldemort a significant amount of time, and also apparently the kid still came out looking like her husband despite being Voldemort's kid, is just super fucking stupid right from the get-go. It makes no sense. And also I should note that during the scene that they were talking like not how I would expect an 11-year-old to talk. It was very strange. And also the reason that they had that part about Scorpius going back, and see, it's important in the in this play, in the world of this play, this is a thing that people think about, because actually Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is a time travel plot, because there's a super special time turner that can go back for long periods of time. So, which is basically the worst idea ever. Um, J.K. Rowling destroyed those time turners in the fifth book to eliminate something that could go back like a couple hours, and now they're introducing something that could go back to any point, and the people don't have to wait out that period of time. Like if they go back 3 years, they don't have to wait 3 years to get back where they were because there's a 5 minute limit on it, and then they get jolted back to where they were. So it's completely inconsistent with everything we know, and it just like ruins the world, and it becomes a time travel plot. And a lot of people just don't like time travel plots a lot because they just basically always have some kind of plot holes or something that is confusing or weird or doesn't make sense because I mean time travel is not something that exists, and if it did it would be probably very complicated. But they just go back in time to save Cedric Diggory from dying. And the whole plot is them like accidentally changing the pasts and like being in realities where things are different. And it is current year, and people are still writing stories where people go back in time, change something, and then are surprised when the present they return to is super different. It's like, oh no, we changed the present. Like I realized that these are sheltered little wizard kids who haven't seen like every time travel movie for the past like 3 decades or basically forever since time travel plots existed, essentially. Don't know this, but the audience knows this, and they don't want to see it. Like I was so annoyed that we're supposed to be shocked that the thing they did changed the present. And oh no, Voldemort runs everything and people don't exist. And he ruined Voldemort Day. And I should point out too that apparently kids in Harry Potter land have also read all of the Harry Potter books because they know every fucking thing that happens in the book. Like like minute details, not like regular things like, oh, there was a battle of Hogwarts. My parents were in it. There were some Horcruxes. They know like really bizarre details. Like there's a part where Scorpius is talking to an alternate state, but he's like, you were in love with Lily. And I'm like, why would he know that? Is that like that's like really like personal that why is that public knowledge that apparently everyone knows, that all the kids knows? Like they can maybe think, oh, maybe Albus knew it. Is that like something they talked about? Like, oh yeah, that Professor Snape, he wanted to fuck my grandma. Why would he have this information? And they were talking about like the events of the Yule Ball. Like, why is this recorded information? There's like it's like that Hermione went to the Yule Ball with Ron as a friend, and then he ended up dancing with Padma, and then they end up getting married. And like Hermione didn't want to go with Victor Crumb because of something that they had done in the past where they pretended to be Durmstrang students. It's not important. The point is that apparently like it was recorded information what these teenagers did at the Yule Ball and why it led them to become like the way this is like, oh, he went with Hermione and they were friends, but he also danced at the ball with the person he would marry. It was really strange, and there's just a lot of stuff like that where apparently they are just super aware of everything that ever happened in the war, almost like they were there. Even though it's very unlikely that Harry would share that information with them, or anyone would share that information with them. It's super strange. Like he knows what Scorpius knows what Lily's Patronus was. Why? Why would he know that? Nobody else knew that. Like, Lily Potter existed and people knew her. She was during the First War and she was kind of famous, and no one ever mentioned that ever in the entire book series. That's not, I don't think that's common knowledge what this one notable person's Patronus was. Stupid. Stupid, stupid. A lot of the characterization was off. Like, people would be making jokes, especially Ron. Ron was just like Hermione's dumb sitcom husband and just sat around and made a joke. There's a point where he describes himself as like the most chilled out, and that's just the most bizarre thing. And nobody challenges him on that. Like we as the audience supposed to be, yeah, Ron's a pretty chilled out guy, even though he's definitely not a chilled out guy. It was like the goofy comic relief movie version of Ron instead of like actual Ron. And the other thing, here's a big thing that bothered me and I didn't like from the get go was that the whole like conflict between Harry and his dad, not Harry and his dad, Al and his father, who is Harry, uh, was that Al was sorted into Slytherin. I know that was like a popular like fanon. I always hated that and it made no fucking sense to me because there's nothing about Al that like indicated that he had any Slytherin traits. Like the whole idea of the house is that it's based on not just your personality but your values, and he's surrounded by Gryffindors whose whole family have been Gryffindors. It doesn't make any sense that he would not have the same values as his entire family unless like maybe they specifically showed him as someone who was kind of like rebelling against his family from the get-go when he was going to his sorting, but they don't. Like when you go back and you see like Sirius and James's first day, like he specifically seems upset that he's going to be in Slytherin, like he's already kind of doesn't fit in with his family. That's not something you get in the epilogue. And I should mention here that I didn't really have a big problem with the epilogue. It could have used a little more information. It read a little bit like a fan fiction, but I didn't like hate the contents of it. But this actually is just like straight up fan fiction, and I'll get to that in a second. So that never made any sense to me. And then he's in Slytherin the whole time, and they never write him like a Slytherin. Like he still acts like a Gryffindor. They make comparison between him and Harry and him and Ginny, and he doesn't like display one Slytherin trait. And actually, neither does Scorpius. Like I know a lot of people wanted Slytherin protagonists, but if you're gonna have a Slytherin protagonist, it doesn't mean anything if they don't display any of the traits that Slytherins have. Like Slytherins are ambitious, Slytherins are cunning, Slytherins are very pragmatic. And all of these, like, all Al does is, run into danger and go on adventures and try to save things. And it's kind of like arrogant and up his own ass a lot. It's really him being Slytherin is just an excuse for him to angst about stuff and be mad at Harry. And I guess be friends with Scorpius, but I think the story would be more interesting if it was like he was in Gryffindor, but he was still friends with Scorpius, even though they were in houses that were traditionally enemies. I think that would be a better story. I don't know. That's just me. I don't like that the whole idea that Harry is still having adventures in which Voldemort is involved and all this shit after the end of the books. That's dumb. I mean, I basically I feel like the 7 books wrapped up everything pretty nicely. We didn't need to continue the whole dark, evil thread. I thought that maybe the story would just be more about him and his relationship with his kids. And it is about that, but it also has to add like a stupid fucking mystery adventure plot that's also not very good. And Scorpius doesn't seem like he's in Slytherin. None of them are like leaders, and none of them are really like they don't attach themselves to someone who's going places like you would think a Slytherin would. They just don't have these Slytherin traits. The only person who has Slytherin traits is Rose, because she clearly is very ambitious and wants to be the best at Quidditch and wants to be the top of the class, and takes after Hermione a lot, and apparently looks exactly like Hermione. Because there's a part where they say specifically that the actress playing young Hermione, when they travel back in time, is the same actress who plays Rose, which is fine. I mean, you have a limited number of child actors, but then they have the character look at her and be like, oh, it's Rose. And that's the dumbest thing ever. I just think that's a weird thing to, like, confirm that they look so alike that these people who know Rose well, like Al, who it's his cousin, he grew up with her, would look at like you would see her mother in the past and think that's her, that they look that alike. That's a little stupid. I was a little annoyed that that was part of the story. Yeah, but Roses and Gryffindor. I always thought that like Hermione would. People like say, "Oh, she would be a good Ravenclaw." I think she'd be a good Slytherin because she's always doing like shady shit. She wants to be the best at everything. I think she would be the actual evil if she wasn't friends with Harry and Ron. But the thing that makes her a Gryffindor is that what she values, not necessarily the trait that she has, what she values is, bravery and doing what's right, which is why she says things like, Harry's better than me, anyone can be clever, but you're really brave. That's a thing that she values and wants to develop in herself. But that's kind of off topic, I guess. It just really pissed me off. It seemed like they were vindicating Fenton, and I didn't really agree with. And I didn't like it. But the worst part of this story is that the main villain is Voldemort's daughter. I like J.K. Rowling was my childhood idol. Now I have to live in a world where I know that she signed off on a story that included Voldemort's daughter, who no one has ever heard of. And then she's Bellatrix's daughter, and she apparently gave birth to her right before the Battle of Hogwarts. Um, so she just was like, she had just given birth to a baby. And she left him and she went to the Battle of Hogwarts. Not that I don't think Bellatrix would do that, but I just think it was bizarre that Voldemort had sex with anyone. It kind of seemed like he wouldn't be very interested. But I mean, I can kind of give that a pass because he does seem to understand people have sexual attraction to each other. Like, because he says in regards to Snape and Lily. So maybe he does experience sexual desire. I don't know. But it's Voldemort's daughter, and in a time travel plot, how is that not like a fan fiction? That's a fan fiction. Yeah, she's his daughter, and she's evil because she never got to like go to Hogwarts anywhere. They just shut her up and taught her to be Voldemort's daughter, and she wants to stop him from being defeated, and she tries to go back in time to do that. And also, I like that this is kind of the plot of Harry Potter sequel, where they actually predicted that there would be a plot where they go back in time and try to stop Voldemort from being defeated. And also, they got that it was Lucius Malfoy too, because apparently Lucius Malfoy was fascinated with time travel, something we never learned about him, and wanted something that would go back further in time. It wasn't limited by the constraints of normal time turners. So he like commissioned it to be made, and he owns one. And there's one time turner that gets destroyed that they found from theater, not his time turner that they had used for the first half of the play. Was actually just like a prototype for Lucius Malfoy's, and Draco held on to it because he didn't want to add fuel to the fire that his wife went back in time and had sex with Voldemort to conceive his son, I guess. The plot was that they were going to go back in time, and originally it's Albus and Scorpius going back in time to save Cedric Diggory because Amos Diggory is like angry and knows that there's some kind of time turner and wants to go save the son. And Harry rationally, because apparently he's seen every time travel movie ever, is like, you can't go back in time and do whatever you want. That will cause problems. But Severus is angsty and is mad at his dad for some reason, despite the fact that his dad like never has done anything wrong to him, except be mildly bad at understanding his teenage son. Decides that he's gonna go back in time, and what they're gonna do is make Cedric Diggory lose, so he doesn't get killed. Which is weird to me because why wouldn't you just intervene? So they go back to the first task instead of going to the third task and just straightforwardly making it so he doesn't get to the cup. which would still be stupid, but it's at least a logical way to approach the I don't want Cedric Diggory to die thing. So they go back in the first task and make him lose, but he was humiliated, so he does better in the second task, so things still end up mostly the same. But then they go back to the second task to fuck that up. And apparently, this humiliated him so much that Cedric Diggory became a Death Eater. So they basically just fucked over Cedric Diggory's character forever. Apparently, he was just like a secret douchebag all along who, being humiliated one time would make him literally join like a fucking death cult and go around killing people. So he killed Neville, who is super important but doesn't appear in this play at all once. So Neville can't defeat Nagini, so Voldemort wins, and so they're in a terrible world where Albus doesn't exist and only Scorpius exists. And in this universe, he's a complete jerk, and Voldemort's still alive, and Umbridge is the headmistress, and it's terrible. And he was ruining Voldemort Day, apparently. That's an actual line. They call it Voldemort Day. Also, they have a ball called the Blood Ball. Get it? Because of, like, purebloods. It's so childish. There's just a lot of points in here where everyone's really bizarrely out of character or one note. I've already mentioned Ron. Snape says a lot of weird stuff when in an alternate timeline when he's alive. Like making snide comments that you don't think he'd ever make. Like I know he makes snide comics, but he's like, did I just quote Albus Dumbledore? And there's also a part where they go to Godric Hollow, which apparently Harry has not been to since the 7th book, which is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. And Albus has never been there. And he's like, I never wanted to go. But like, he was an asshole who didn't want to go to his grandparents' grave, like even before he went to Hogwarts, and he was like 4 years old. He's just like, nah, I don't want to go see grandma and grandpa's graves. Um, they haven't been there. And then Draco and Hermione and Ron and Harry and Ginny show up. They're all teamed up trying to find their children. And Draco's like, is that a farmer's market? Which is like a stupid fucking joke line for Draco. And also, why does he know what a farmer's market is? He's a fucking wizard. And the point that they go back in time to is actually the night that Harry's parents were killed. And they have like this whole face off with the Voldemort's daughter, who is actually named Delphi. And they introduced her as like she's posing as Amos Diggory's niece. And my first instinct when they introduced her, and I'm like, oh, she's evil because her name is Delphi, and there's time travel in this story. So clearly, she's not as irrelevant as she's pretending to be, right? She's significant to the the plot, and she's got to be lying because she's named after an oracle. And she's following a prophecy that she can somehow go back. This is an actual prophecy that she can go back in time and revive Voldemort. And that's another thing about just the whole mystery plot. I guess it's very limited by time, and also the fact that J.K. Rowling didn't write it. It's kind of stupid. I mean, it's a time travel plot, so it's gonna be fucking stupid. But like, there's a point where they have to sneak into Hermione's office because Hermione's the Minister of Magic, and they have to get this special, super special time turner, and they just like walk in. They get Polyjuice Potion. They just walk in. Like, in Harry Potter book, there's all this fucking preparation. It takes chapters and chapters for them to make a plan and then get all the things together and then execute the plan. They're just like, I stole some Polyjuice Potion. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go sneak into the ministry and sneak into the minister's office. And no problem. It's really, and then they like solve some riddles, and then they get the time turner, and that's it. So it's not particularly riveting. It's not, it doesn't feel like a Harry Potter story where they, They just spend chapters and chapters trying to figure out how to get in some place or steal something. They just go. They just go. They just went. I'm trying to think what else. There is a point in the story where they're in alternate timeline of Hermione and Ron aren't married. And Ron married Padma. I mentioned this. And Ron married Padma, and they have a son. Um, and all I could think was, they were he erased Al and erased his cousins, so he wants to go back and fix the thing he fixed, so that doesn't happen. And yet, all I could think was they just straight up killed that kid. They erased that child from existence. I that that like I said, time travel plots like just kind of inherently have that stupid shit in there. Like, we're not gonna think that we just killed this kid. And there's a lot of like weird like most things are the same for some reason, even though they changed history. Um, like for instance, when they go to the darkest timeline, Draco still married Astoria, even though like isn't the whole point that he had character development and he married someone who wasn't a total bitch all the time? Like, he was traumatized by the war, and she was also to a lesser extent traumatized by the war and disillusioned with the principles they had grown up on, and that's why they got married. But no, they apparently still married in this timeline. I guess you could make the excuse that like he still cried in the bathroom, like he was still a broken man. But he's like, a big deal. He's like in charge of wizarding law enforcement in that department in the ministry because Voldemort is in charge of everything. Oh, and the other thing that pissed me off was that they killed Astoria. And I'm like, why can't you just let Draco Malfoy be happy? And more importantly, why did you kill Scorpius' mom? It's so mean. I know it's like a really childish criticism. And they're like, I don't like it because it makes me feel bad. But I would have. I'm actually really interested in her whole character and her and Draco's whole relationship. And they just killed her off. She dies of like wizard cancer. And like a lot of other characters I think people would be interested in, they didn't really mention, like James and Lily, Harry's kids, not Harry's parents. Like, there's no real information on them. We don't really learn anything new about them. We don't learn anything new about Hugo. Neville, like I said, doesn't appear. Luna doesn't appear. And the whole character of Delphi, if you're gonna fucking include Voldemort's daughter, which is an inherently dumb idea, even if you're gonna do that, like, can't you develop her in some way? Like, I'm sure her childhood was very interesting. And there's at least one other thing I wanted to mention. Let me check. I should have really taken notes on this shit. Oh, the breaking point that made me wake up in the middle of the night to record this is that I was thinking, wait a second. Because there's a part in the book where they return back in time and Albus exists again. And they look at each other's uniforms to check if they're still in Slytherin. And it struck me that, wait a second, that's a movie thing. In the books, it's very unclear whether you could tell if what someone's house is from their uniform, from their robes. Some people say it's definitely not in there, but I have reason to believe it's a little bit in there. And I'm like, that's something they confirmed. It's canon that you could tell just right off. Oh, I'm in Slytherin. I was that's the thing that made me wake up and be like, this isn't canon because their uniforms are wrong. And there are probably a bunch of other stupid things like that. Apparently the trolley lady who works on the Hogwarts Express is like some kind of, she's like a bajillion years old, and they get up on the roof of the train and she's like throwing fireballs at them, like she's some kind of like video game character. That's in the book. I guess that's in there. Um, just looking through, there's just a lot of stupid, childish bullshit in here. There really is. It's very. It doesn't feel like Harry Potter. And it's. I mean, they might as well have taken that super special time turner and gone back in time and ruined my childhood because Harry Potter is super stupid now. I'm kind of hoping that like in a couple years, J.K. Rowling will come to her senses and like disavow this a little bit, disavow her Phantom Menace. Um, I was just thinking of something stupid. Oh, so for some reason in these books, Harry temporarily gets back his parcel tongue and also his scar starts hurting again. And that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, that was happening, and I thought that the twist was going to be that Cedric Diggory that became a Death Eater was somehow, like, possessed by Voldemort or some shit. But then that didn't happen. And also, I realized that it didn't matter because the part of Harry that was Voldemort is still gone, even if there's a remnant of Voldemort around, which there wasn't. There never was. There was just his fucking daughter, which I don't think counts. Your child does not have the same soul as you. Uh, he still has no connection to Voldemort anymore. So there's literally zero reason why that would be happening. But that's in there so that they can conveniently have Harry speak Parseltongue and conveniently have him sense danger with his scar. Um, it's stupid. A lot of dumb jokes, a lot of just juvenile plot points. Um, all right, here's the last thing I think I have to say. So a lot of the plot is about Albus and his friend Scorpius, and they're best friends and they're each other's only friends. Like I said, do you think Slytherins will only make like some social connections with each other if they were really truly Slytherin, and in their essential nature, if that's the things they value, that's the things they want it to be? None of that. But they're each other's best friends. And it's also about like Harry trying to relate to his son and all the guilt he feels about the war and all the people who died for him, which is why I guess Cedric is relevant. But apparently, Cedric was like one event away from being an evil asshole. So I guess don't feel guilty, Harry. Fuck Cedric. Let's just completely devalue him as a character to make the plot move along. But also Scorpius has a crush on Rose. He's got a case of the not gays, essentially. Like this whole thing is how close and wonderful these two teenage boys are, and they're each other's only friends. He has this whole relationship with Scorpius. I'm like, at least have them make out. At least redeem this book somewhat. I mean, if you're gonna validate the fan that they're both in Slytherin together, like everyone who thinks that wants them to be in a relationship anyway, so just do it. But they didn't do that. They had to have him be attracted to the one girl his age that he knows. So all in all, terrible. Childhood ruined. I really hope J.K. Rowling budges from her position that this is in any way canon because it's super bad. Um, I don't know how much of this was her and how much of this was like just pitched to her. And she's just like, yeah, okay. But she recently said that like she's done with Harry Potter, and she's a little bit too late on that decision, in my opinion. I wish she had come to that conclusion a little earlier, because then I wouldn't have had to read this mediocre fan fiction with Voldemort's daughter.